Layla lived in a village that lay on the edge of a bustling city, a place where the golden sun bathed everything in a warm light, and the rhythm of daily life echoed with the sounds of people going about their chores. Her village was beautiful, with lush fields stretching far and wide, but the people often found themselves bogged down by the hardships of daily survival. Layla was a striking young girl with fair skin and eyes so bright that they seemed to reflect the sun itself. Her hair was long and dark, with a natural luster that could catch anyone's eye. People couldn't help but admire her beauty. But what they didn't know was that Layla's heart was set on one thing: knowledge. Since childhood, Layla had always excelled in her studies. She wasn't just the smartest girl in her village, she was known as the brightest student in her entire school. She would rise early in the morning, tie her hair neatly, and put on her school uniform with care, ready to conquer the day. Her classmates would often talk about how perfect she seemed, but Layla paid little attention to such things. For her, school was about learning and nothing else. Her teachers loved her because of her intelligence, her dedication to her studies, and her polite demeanor. But there was something else about her that couldn't go unnoticed: her beauty. At school, teachers often found themselves distracted by her presence. Mr. Malik, the history teacher, would sometimes stumble over his words when explaining concepts to her. Mrs. Sarah, the literature teacher, couldn't help but praise Layla's eloquent handwriting and thoughtfulness in her essays. But despite all this attention, Layla stayed focused. She knew that her beauty was a fleeting thing, but her education would stay with her for life. One evening, after school, Layla was sitting alone in the classroom, going over her textbooks. The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft orange glow through the windows. She was deeply engrossed in her reading when Amina, one of her classmates, entered the room. Amina was different from Layla. While Layla had the looks, Amina was known for her mischievous nature and sharp tongue. "Layla, you're still here?" Amina asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Yes, just finishing some reading," Layla replied with a smile. Amina walked over to Layla's desk and glanced at the pile of books spread out before her. "You know, if I were as pretty as you, I wouldn't be wasting all this time studying. You could probably get whatever you want just by batting your eyelashes at the teachers." Layla looked up, startled. "What do you mean?" Amina smirked. "Don't you notice the way Mr. Malik and Mrs. Sarah look at you? You could get higher grades with half the effort. They all adore you." Layla was silent, trying to process what Amina was suggesting. She had always believed in working hard and earning everything through merit. The thought of using her beauty to get ahead in school felt wrong to her. But Amina's words began to linger in her mind. Later that night, as Layla lay in bed, her mind raced. What if Amina was right? What if life could be easier if she used her looks to her advantage? Just a little. But she also knew deep down that she didn't want to betray her principles. She had worked hard for everything she had achieved, and she didn't want to risk losing that integrity. The next day, she decided to try something different. Maybe she could see what it felt like to use her beauty, just to test the waters. When she woke up in the morning, she applied a light layer of makeup, something she had never done before. She let her hair fall in soft waves around her shoulders instead of tying it up as she usually did. When she walked into school that day, she could feel the change instantly. Heads turned as she walked through the gates, and whispers followed her wherever she went. Even the teachers seemed to look at her with more attention than usual. In class, when Mr. Malik handed out a surprise quiz, Layla felt a brief wave of panic. She hadn't studied for it, but then she remembered Amina's suggestion. As Mr. Malik collected the papers, Layla gave him a soft, sweet smile. I hope I did well on the quiz, Mr. Malik. I really want to maintain my grades, she said softly. Mr. Malik looked flustered. I'm sure you did fine, Layla. You're my best student. When the graded quizzes were returned the next day, Layla was surprised to see a perfect score on hers. She knew she hadn't answered all the questions correctly. Could Amina's method actually work? Encouraged by this, Layla continued to experiment, using her beauty to charm her way through school. She would smile at her teachers, offer kind words, and watch as her grades soared without much effort. For a while, it felt like a relief. She no longer had to study late into the night. She could relax, knowing that a smile or a compliment was enough to get by. But soon, things began to change. Her classmates, who had once admired her, began to whisper behind her back. They noticed that Layla seemed to be breezing through tests without putting in the same effort they did. Some of them even started to resent her, believing that she was getting special treatment from the teachers. Amina, however, watched all this with a mixture of satisfaction and envy. She had planted the seed, but she hadn't expected Layla to be so successful at it. One afternoon, as Layla was walking home from school, she overheard two teachers talking in an empty classroom. She paused outside the door, listening. Have you noticed how Layla's been acting lately? It was Mr. Malik's voice. Yes, it's becoming a problem, Mrs. Sarah replied. She's using her beauty to get ahead, and the other students are starting to complain about it. We need to be careful, Mr. Malik said. Maybe we can meet with her outside of school and discuss this further. Layla's heart sank. She quickly walked away, a wave of guilt and fear washing over her. What had she gotten herself into? She had never intended for things to go this far. The next day at school, she felt the weight of everyone's gaze on her. The teachers' smiles, the compliments, they all seemed different now. She had opened a door she couldn't close. That afternoon, she found Amina and confronted her. Amina, I think I made a mistake, Layla said, her voice trembling. The teachers, they were more than just smiles and compliments. I overheard them talking about meeting me outside school. I don't know what to do. This has gone too far. Amina's face darkened, but she quickly masked it with a sly smile. You've come this far, Layla. Don't stop now. If they want more, give it to them. You can't turn back. Layla recoiled. No, Amina, I won't do that. I never should have started this. I'm stopping it now. As she walked away, she didn't see the dark look on Amina's face. She didn't know that her decision to stop would lead to even worse consequences. The next day, Layla went to school without any makeup, wearing her hair tied back in its usual style. She was determined to return to her old self, to focus on her studies once more. But as soon as she walked into the classroom, she could feel the difference. The whispers started again, and this time they weren't flattering. Well, well, Amina's voice rang out. Look who's back, the teacher's pet, or should I say, the little flirt. Layla felt her heart drop. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice shaking. Oh, come on, Layla, Amina sneered. Everyone knows what you've been doing to get those perfect grades. Sleeping with the teachers, it's pathetic. Layla's world seemed to shatter in that moment. That's not true, she cried out. I never did anything like that. But the damage had already been done. The rumor spread like wildfire, And soon, even the principal called her into her office. "Layla," the principal said coldly, "I've heard some very disturbing rumors about your behavior with the teachers. This is a serious accusation." Layla tried to defend herself, but it was no use. "You've become a liability to this school," the principal said. "We have no choice but to expel you." The words hit Layla like a physical blow. Her perfect record, her dreams of graduating at the top, everything she had worked so hard for, was gone in an instant. As she walked out of the principal's office, she saw Amina standing in the hallway, a triumphant smile on her face. In that moment, Layla realized just how deeply Amina had betrayed her. Her parents were devastated, but they didn't believe the rumors. They were angry at her, disappointed that she had used her beauty to gain favors. But they didn't give up on her. They helped her enroll in a new school, a public school far removed from the prestigious institution she had once attended. On her first day at the new school, Layla felt like a completely different person. The confident top student was gone. In her place stood a girl who felt lost and broken. But as she stood at the gates of her new school, she made a vow to herself. This was her second chance, a chance to prove that she was more than just a pretty face. She would rebuild her life, one step at a time. The journey ahead would be long, but she was determined to face it head on. Little did Layla know this was only the beginning of her journey.